My name is Sophia Bennett, and today, if you stepped into my office, you'd see the picture of success: floor-to-ceiling glass windows overlooking downtown Chicago, a mahogany desk polished to a shine, the soft hum of my assistant's heels clicking against marble floors. On the surface, everything looks effortless, polished, untouchable. But success has a memory, and mine carries scars. This morning, as I slipped into my cream silk blouse and fastened the gold pendant my grandmother once gave me, I thought the day would be like any other. Meetings, contracts, numbers. But then my phone buzzed. It was a name I hadn't seen in years. One I thought I'd buried under late nights, empty coffee cups, and sheer determination. Madison Clark. Her text was short, almost too casual. "Sophia, I heard about your company. We should catch up. Maybe I can stop by today." My breath caught, sharp and unsteady. Madison, the girl who once laughed the loudest when I shared my plan, the one who rolled her eyes and called me delusional. I set my phone down, palms pressing against the cool wood of my desk. Funny, isn't it? How the same people who mocked you eventually circle back when your name is shining in places they never imagined. I looked out the window, the city glittering beneath a late morning sun. And I realized something. Today wouldn't just be another day at the office. Today, the past was coming to knock on my door. And I was finally ready to answer. I can still remember the night it all started, as vividly as if it happened yesterday. Back then, I wasn't Sophia Bennett, CEO. I was just a 22-year-old fresh college graduate, juggling 2 part-time jobs and a stack of rejection emails from corporate firms. While most of my friends were sending out resumes, I was sketching out something different, an idea that I couldn't shake. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't the kind of dream people put on Instagram. But it was mine. One evening, I sat at Madison Clark's apartment, surrounded by our small circle of friends. Pizza boxes littered the coffee table, soda cans stacked like trophies of youth. Nervously, I pulled out my notebook. "I want to start my own digital branding agency," I announced, my voice trembling but hopeful. "Small businesses don't have access to affordable, creative marketing. I think I can change that." The room fell silent for half a second, then erupted into laughter. "Wait, you? With what money?" Madison snorted, tossing her long blonde hair over her shoulder. Another friend chimed in. "Sophia, be serious. You can barely afford rent." And then came the dagger. "Dream smaller. This isn't for people like us." Their laughter burned deeper than I admitted. My hands shook as I closed the notebook, pressing the pen so hard against the page that the ink smeared. My throat tightened, but I forced a smile, pretending it didn't hurt. Inside, I was shattering. That night, I went home to the small studio I shared with my younger sister, tears stinging my eyes. As I curled up on my futon, my grandmother's pendant brushed against my skin, the same one I wore this morning. It was her graduation gift to me, along with words I'll never forget. "Don't wait for someone to believe in your dream, Sophia. Be the first believer." I clutched the pendant in my hand, like a lifeline. The sting of Madison's laughter replayed in my head, but this time it sparked something new: defiance. They thought I was foolish, delusional. But what they didn't know was that I'd rather fail 100 times chasing my vision than live a lifetime wondering what if. That night, I opened my laptop, wiped my tears, and registered the domain name for my future company. I didn't know how, and I didn't know when, but I swore. One day, they'd remember this moment. And the laughter? It would echo back at them like a haunting reminder of the day they underestimated me. The first year was brutal. I was working nights at a diner, pouring coffee for strangers while scribbling logo designs on the back of order pads. During the day, I answered calls for a real estate office, sneaking in quick lessons on Photoshop and web design during my lunch breaks. My bank account rarely saw more than 2 digits, and there were nights when instant ramen felt like a luxury. But even in the exhaustion, there was fire. Every time I felt like quitting, I remembered Madison's laughter. It rang in my ears like a dare. One night, while serving coffee at the diner, I noticed a woman reviewing a stack of marketing brochures. She looked frustrated, circling mistakes with a red pen. On a reckless impulse, I leaned closer and said, I could design something better than that for half the cost. She looked up, skeptical, but intrigued. Her name was Margaret Lane, a small business owner running a local boutique. She gave me a chance, just one flyer design. I stayed up all night, teaching myself new techniques, my laptop heating up so much it nearly burned my thighs. When she saw the final product, her eyes widened. You did this? She asked. You've got real talent. Margaret became my first paying client, $50. It wasn't much, but to me, it felt like $1 million. It was proof that maybe, just maybe, my plan wasn't a joke. From there, I started freelancing for more small businesses. A bakery, a yoga studio, a mechanic shop. Each project was tiny, but each one lit a spark of confidence. Slowly, word spread. Margaret referred me to a friend, that friend to another, and soon my weekends were filled with design projects instead of late-night shifts. Still, I didn't brag. I didn't post glossy success stories online. When Madison or anyone from that old circle asked how I was doing, I kept it vague. Oh, just busy with some work. I wanted my wins to grow quietly, away from their judgment. Years passed, and my little freelancing gig grew into something bigger. I rented a shared workspace, then hired my first intern. The night I signed my first $10,000 contract with a regional restaurant chain, I sat alone in my apartment, crying into a takeout container of lo mein. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. Of course, the struggles never disappeared. There were failed pitches, late payments, and nights I questioned if I was just running on stubborn pride. But every setback became a lesson. Every small victory added another brick to the empire I was quietly building. Margaret became more than just a client. She became my mentor. She pushed me to think bigger, to believe that my agency could compete with the big firms one day. She once told me, Sophia, the only difference between you and them is that they've stopped doubting themselves. And slowly I stopped doubting too. By the time I turned 28, I wasn't just freelancing. I was running Bennett Creative Agency, a company with employees, offices, and a growing list of clients who trusted me. But still, my family, my old friends, even Madison, they had no idea. To them, I was still Sophia with crazy dreams. And I wanted to keep it that way. For now. The knock on my office door came right on time. My assistant, Rachel, peeked in. Sophia, Madison Clark is here to see you. Should I send her in? For a moment, I let the silence stretch. My heart beat steadily, not with nerves, but with anticipation. Finally, I nodded. Yes. Send her in. When Madison walked through the door, she was exactly as I remembered. Perfectly manicured nails, expensive perfume that lingered in the air, the smug tilt of her chin. But I noticed something else, too. A flicker of unease in her eyes as she glanced around. Her gaze landed on the details, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the modern art on the walls, the neatly framed awards and press features. Every inch of the office whispered of achievement. She tried to hide her surprise. Wow, this place is impressive. I smiled politely, gesturing to the leather chair across from me. Have a seat, Madison. She lowered herself cautiously, scanning the space as if trying to piece together how I'd gotten here. So, Bennett Creative Agency, huh? I heard your name come up at a networking event last week. I couldn't believe it was you. Her laugh was awkward, forced. I mean, you always had these wild ideas in college. But honestly, I never thought that I'd succeed. I finished her sentence smoothly, my eyes steady on hers. Her smile faltered. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did. My voice was calm, but firm. You laughed at me, Madison. You told me to dream smaller. Do you remember that? She flushed, shifting in her seat. We were kids, Sophia. Everyone jokes around. Don't take it so seriously. I leaned back in my chair, letting the sunlight stream across my desk. I took it seriously enough to prove you wrong. At that moment, Rachel knocked again. Sophia, your 2 o'clock is here. The door opened wider, and in stepped Ethan Miller, a well-known tech entrepreneur and one of my biggest clients. He gave me a warm smile. Sophia, just wanted to say the campaign results came in. Phenomenal work, as always. Thank you, Ethan, I replied, shaking his hand. I'll email you the full report later. As he left, Madison's mouth nearly dropped open. Wait, Ethan Miller is your client. One of many, I said casually, opening a sleek folder on my desk. Inside were financial charts, awards, and letters of recognition. My company manages over 200 accounts nationwide. Last year, we crossed 8 figures in revenue. Her hand flew to her mouth, eyes wide. 8 figures? I nodded slowly, savoring the silence that followed. The same plan you mocked, the same dream you said was impossible, is now my reality. For once, Madison had nothing to say. The confidence she carried like a crown slipped, leaving behind something raw, regret. Finally, she whispered, I underestimated you. I leaned forward, my voice low but steady.
No, Madison.
You dismissed me. You wanted me to fail because it made your world feel safer. But I didn't fail. I built something you can't laugh away. The air in the room grew heavy, charged with the weight of unspoken history. Madison shifted uncomfortably, her gaze darting to the floor, then back to me. You've really made it, she admitted softly. I guess the joke's on me. I tilted my head, offering a small, almost pitying smile. No, Madison. The joke was never on me. It was always on anyone who believed I couldn't do this. Silence filled the office again, but this time, I owned it. Every inch of this space, every achievement on the walls, every word unsaid, it was all mine. And Madison finally understood. Madison sat there, fidgeting with the strap of her designer purse, her voice hesitant. Sophia, listen. I didn't just come here to say hi. Things haven't been great for me lately. I stayed silent, letting her squirm. Silence, I'd learned, was more powerful than words. She cleared her throat. My marketing job fell through. The company downsized. I thought maybe you might have a place for me, even just something small. I raised my brows. The irony wasn't lost on me. Years ago, she told me to dream smaller. Now, she was asking me for a chance at mine. I see, I said slowly, leaning back in my chair. So you laughed at my plan, told me I'd fail, and now you want to join the same plan you mocked. Her eyes filled with shame. I know how it sounds.
But people change.
I've changed.
Please, Sophia.
I just need a fresh start. For a moment, I let her words hang in the air. Part of me wanted to slam the door in her face, to remind her of every cruel laugh, every dismissive smirk. But another part, the part my grandmother raised, whispered that strength wasn't about revenge. It was about choice. Finally, I spoke. If I help you, Madison, it will be on my terms. And those terms won't be easy. She nodded quickly. Anything. Just name it. I leaned forward, my voice steady, controlled. First, humility. You don't get to belittle others anymore. Not their dreams, not their efforts. If you work here, you lift people up, you don't drag them down. Her face flushed, but she nodded. I understand. Second, I continued. Accountability. No excuses, no shortcuts. You start at the bottom. Entry-level work, proving yourself through action, not words. If you want my trust, you'll earn it like everyone else. Her lips parted in surprise, but she quickly agreed.
Yes.
I'll do it. And third, I said softly, almost gently, gratitude. You spend less time chasing appearances and more time valuing what's real. This industry chews people up, Madison. If you're not grounded, you'll drown. Gratitude is your anchor. She blinked rapidly, as if fighting tears. I can do that. I let her sit with those words, the weight of them pressing down. Then I stood, walking to the window, gazing out at the skyline that had once felt like an impossible dream. You know, Madison, I said, my voice calm. When you mocked me, it hurt more than I ever admitted. But in a strange way, you gave me fuel. Every laugh, every word of doubt, I carry them with me, and they push me forward. I turned back to her, meeting her eyes. So, if you want a place here, it won't be as my old friend. It will be as someone who finally understands what it means to build instead of break.
Can you handle that?
She swallowed hard, then nodded. Yes, Sophia. I can. For the first time, I saw something genuine in her. Not the polished arrogance she always wore, but the raw face of someone who had fallen and wanted to rise again. And maybe, just maybe, this was how the cycle of mockery ended. Not with revenge, but with transformation. The weeks that followed were unexpected. Madison started at the very bottom, just like I promised. Filing reports, organizing client data, double-checking invoices. It wasn't glamorous, but she showed up early, even. At first, she struggled. I caught her staring at her phone too long, sighing at the mundane tasks. But slowly, something shifted. She began asking questions. She stayed late to learn from senior designers. She even brought coffee for interns, a gesture I'd never have imagined from the old Madison. And every time I saw that flicker of growth in her, I felt something inside me heal. My parents, too, had once doubted me. They never mocked me outright, but their silence was heavy. They wanted safety for me, a steady paycheck, a predictable life. But when they visited my office months later and saw the empire I had built, their eyes filled with pride I'd waited years to see. My mother touched the awards on the wall with trembling fingers. My father shook my hand like I was not just his daughter, but a force of my own. One evening, long after the office had emptied, I sat alone at my desk. The city lights stretched endlessly outside the window, glowing against the night sky. I reached up, fingers brushing the gold pendant at my neck, the one my grandmother had given me. Her words echoed again. Don't wait for someone to believe in your dream, Sophia. Be the first believer. Tears stung my eyes, but they weren't from pain this time. They were from gratitude. For the failures that taught me resilience. For the mockery that sharpened my resolve. For the people who doubted me, because without them, I might never have fought this hard. I thought of that night years ago, sitting in Madison's apartment as laughter drowned my voice. I thought of my hands shaking as I registered my company's name. And I thought of this moment now, sitting in the heart of my success, no longer needing validation because I had already given it to myself. Madison knocked gently on my door before leaving. Good night, Sophia. And thank you. Her voice carried humility I had never heard before. And for the first time, I believed she meant it. When the door clicked shut, I leaned back in my chair, the city shining beyond the glass. They mocked my plan, I whispered, clutching the pendant close to my heart. A slow smile curved across my lips. But now it's a success story.